G'day team, welcome to Two Friends Talking Shit about FPL. We are both back at home, we are in our right setups. We are 20 weeks in, we are going to be talking about benched points. How many points have we benched, how are our teams doing, and how is our league going after 20 weeks? Andy, how are you, mate?
I am a bit tired. Back to work next week. Need a bit of a holiday from the holiday. Actually, it was a relaxing holiday. It's just, when you spend a long time doing nothing and then you feel more tired? I think it was one of those holidays. I managed to spend a lot of time on fantasy football, which is good. I spent, although the results don't show it, I actually went backwards during that time. Or maybe in the last few weeks. But no, I've been good. And I'm looking forward to getting some EPL happening again. It's a weekend and no EPL. I don't like these weekends.
No, and to use some 2020 terminology, as an essential worker, I don't know what your holiday has felt like, because I've worked straight through it, but it's been a good FPL little session for me. Maybe the work has kept my mind and been able to work in the background, but we've had a good few weeks, we've made some progress, so yeah, shall we get into it?
Let's roll.
All right, let's have a chat about game week 20 then. Andy, how did you do?
Game week 20? Let's have a look. All right, this was me for game week 20. Ended up with 67 points. The average was 60. I negged forward. Surprise, surprise. I had Sells in goal. So Brad to Sells is probably one of my best transfers. I really enjoyed that. Colwill, he just has not performed. I'm really keen to get rid of him. Robinson, I was hoping for a bit more from him, but it is what it is, given his price point. Hoyson with the 8, although I did notice Kirkes was the one who got more points. And TAA, this has been disappointing. Following his 15-pointer from the week before, I don't know, 7.2 million for a player that's just not a defender's not scoring that consistently. I don't know if that's worth it, but we'll see. I guess the fact that he's a defender, are there any 7.2 million midfielders which could keep up? I don't know. Gordon's 7.5 and he's scoring way more than TAA. So I see a few EPL influencers talk about how I'll stop comparing TAA to other defenders, compare him to other 7-odd million players, and I do it. Still can find better. So I don't know. I'm in an argument about TA. Palmer with 10 points, Gordon with 7 points, Salah with 14 on captain. I brought in Gabriel Jesus. I was tossing up between Wissa or Jesus. I went Jesus, and we also how Wissa did. So I'm a bit salty about that. Wood with 8, which is being solid. Isaac with 7. And Ahmad with 9. I left him on the bench because honestly, that Liverpool United result surprised me. I did not see it going that way. I really didn't see it going that way. Timber with 0, which surprising. He didn't play any minutes. I think was he sick or something? I can't actually remember. And Rogers with 0 on the bench, where he didn't also play any minutes. So, that's right. They had the red card. That's why. 2 yellows. That's why they didn't play. So yeah, overall, I had a red arrow. So 150k down to 199k, which is a bit. Not every week can be a green week, right? But overall, I'm not unhappy with it. I could have slipped way more. I think after the first few games, I was well behind. I was like down to 250,000 places, and that last game, the Forest game, got me back in the game with Sells and Wood. So yeah, overall, okay game week. Not the best, not the worst either. And there's a few people where I'm just umming and ahhing about what to do with them.
Yeah, and you mentioned the United-Liverpool game. It was a weird one, and we did say in our pod that United do generally bring something to the table when they play Liverpool, whether it's home or away. Like the 7-0 from a few seasons ago was a bit of an anomaly, and it was either going to go one way or the other. I don't think we expected as many goals to be shared. It was either going to be one or like a Liverpool heavy win or a small score draw, but wasn't the case. And a bit of a weird week that we saw lots of virus and illness injuries this week. Tottenham's team was kind of decimated. We've had some at Newcastle, some at Chelsea. So a bit of a weird one with some unexpected absences. But yeah, so the average was 60. So my week went as follows. So I got 66 points. So obviously with no -4, that means I won our little thing for the week, which is oh so good, which means we're now joint again. It's all square after 20 weeks, 10 wins apiece. I think it's, we've drawn a cut one, I think, as well. So I had Sales with 9, like you, Robinson 1, Gabriel 2, Kirkez with the 12, Hall 2, Diego Jota with 1. That was disappointing. Salah, captain 14, Palmer 10, Gakpo 6 came through. Jesus with 2, Isak with 7, and yet again, benched points. So obviously Fabianski was injured, didn't play. Rogers, Timber were both suspended, and Fernandez with 7 on the bench. So not horrific for me. It was kind of it's a green arrow, but it's a green arrow of 4,000 places. So very, very little green arrow. But green arrow's a green arrow. It keeps me moving forward, and it moves us up our down under league. So that's
For sure.
It's a good week.
This game week that just passed was probably one where my neg 4 made so much difference. That neg 4 that I did from Jackson to Jesus, they both got the same points. That was the difference between me beating you in our head-to-head or not beating you. So, yeah, that's quite annoying, especially since Jesus didn't return anything. So, like I said, it is what it is.
Yeah, I think a lot of the places I was looking were saying that I should play Fernandez in that game, and that Fernandez should always been on the pitch. But then I probably would have swapped him for Kirkez, which probably wouldn't have been. I would have had less points, out of 5 less, and that would have won you. So small margins this week, small margins.
For sure. Now, just with this week, are there any games that stand out to you, and any ones that you think will impact how you choose a team, players you bring in moving forward?
I'm not overly sure. I'll bring them up so we can all kind of see, and we can just talk about the main couple. Obviously, if United can keep some stuff going, and they can manage to push on, I think that would be they're a good team to look at. They're going to be differentials. People are going to be a bit slower to jump on them, but they just seem to be up and down. Like they can't maintain anything. It was interesting to see Palace hold Chelsea. I think that was interesting. Brighton at Arsenal. I think it's more of an Arsenal slip up than a successful Brighton. But again, Newcastle were all over Spurs. Spurs got the first goal. Yeah, Newcastle came back. Forest dominant at Wolves from the start. The Brentford Southampton. I don't think we can take too much from it really, because it was Brentford.
Southampton.
It was Southampton. The Brentford away win is good for Brentford because they seem to be better at home than away, and they're quite historically this year significantly better at home. So that's good to see them putting some good numbers away from home. Bournemouth probably didn't beat Everton as much as I thought they would. I think City. I thought they would win at home to Villa, but not as convincingly.
Okay, question. Is Haaland back?
Normally, I think I would say yes. He's definitely back, but because of the amount of time that he's been off for, I would say let's wait and see and make sure this is return to form. Like, you could quite easily say that this was just a Savio masterclass week. He's got 3 assists there. So, was it just he played well and then the team was better? Hard to say. Like, they did look reasonably good, but I think for me it's too early to be going back to Haaland if you're not wildcarding it. You could have a risk and go with him on a wildcard, but I think we want to see a bit more from him. And when we've got consistent returners in like Salah and Isak, I don't know if we have the money for everyone, and I'd probably he may be back, but I think I would go a couple of consistent returners over the risk of Haaland.
For Haaland, the Man City fixtures are also not the best for the next few. No. They will clear up, I think, from game week 20. What am I looking at? bring it up here. 25 onwards, Brentford and Ipswich, the next two look okay. And I can imagine Haaland scoring again. But then they've got Chelsea, Arsenal, Newcastle, Liverpool. It's not until game week 27 that they've got Spurs, right? So from game week 27 onwards, I could see myself bringing Haaland. Technically, you could bring him in this week against Brentford and Ipswich, but then for Chelsea, Arsenal and Newcastle and Liverpool, I don't know if you'd expect that many goals from them. So I am tempted to bring in Haaland. I'm only 2 moves away from Haaland. TAA out, Jesus to Haaland, right? I can do that. But you're right. He's been not performing for long enough, although he scored in his last. He scored twice in this most recent game. Is this him building more momentum where we're going to start seeing snippets of the Haaland of old? Because if his game against Brentford, he can score easily. Ipswich, he can score easily. That just might be enough for people to start bringing him in en masse. And if they do, his price is going to start shooting up even for the more difficult fixtures. Can you then afford him afterwards? That's going to be the tricky thing.
Yeah, and it kind of depends on... The more worrying thing for me with the Haaland isn't Haaland himself, it's more of the atmosphere around City. Like when you've got Pep saying that they're not back to form and something's going on and, you know, he's got a job to reverse things. Like he's not said that before at City, and that's not just a blip, that's a team not playing well. So, you know, he could keep going, get a couple of goals against Brentford and Ipswich, like you say, and then have his momentum back. But it's just as likely for me this season that he maybe gets a goal at Brentford, gets a goal at Ipswich, and then he's held in the first difficult game, and then the confidence is gone again. We forget how young Haaland still is, and even though he's so good and he's got all of this experience already, he still will be, you know, prone to those dry spells where he's, you know, he just doesn't have the age. He's not like he's 27, 28 and he's at the prime and he knows that he'll go a few games. He's still, you can see from the Arsenal game where he was saying, you know, stay humble, stay humble. He's not quite got the experienced, calm head on him. He's still in that rough, you know, just clear-cut goal scorer. And maybe that will affect his confidence, and maybe it won't. Maybe he is a bit more put together, but he's had a bit of a rough spell, and that has kind of elongated longer than you would expect. And as we said last week, if he was any other striker, he would have been out of the team for a period of time. It's only because he's Haaland, and we know what he can do, that he's remained in that team. So yeah, I'd like to see him get his confidence and his form back, and for him to just go nuts. Not that nuts that they come back into the title race, because I'd rather leave that as it is. But yeah, he's an asset that isn't an asset at the moment, and him being priced well and scoring well really does shake up the points. It does shake up the teams, because you have to choose whether you have Haaland and Salah and a very weak extra bit of the team, or whether you go with one, or whether you go with none. And that first few weeks of the season were really quite exciting, and then as soon as he's gone off the boil, it's gone very template again. So for that reason alone, I'd love to see him come back.
Savio, then, if we're not bringing in Haaland for 6.5 million, is Savio the play?
Yeah, and again, it depends on your risk, how much you want to risk. I think if you are happy to bring in a player that's not going to play 90 minutes every week and may get 3 in a week and then not get anything in a couple of weeks and get 25 minutes off the bench, I think you can go with this. I wouldn't go with it now, as you say that City have got these hard fixtures. In this period of good fixtures, I think, yeah, but for the 6.5 million, I think we've probably got other options that we can, you know, if you can put a little bit more in there, that you've got who have a better chance of returning and playing consistent minutes for them meanwhile.
Okay, fair. Yeah, looking at Man City fixtures is just, it's something I've been looking at because I want a Man City player in it. I just feel like from a goal scoring point of view, I can see them ramping up again. It's just that block of difficult fixtures. Arsenal, Liverpool, Newcastle, Chelsea, that's putting me off a bit.
And we've got, bear in mind as well that when City have their change in fortunes and get better fixtures, we have teams like Brentford who also get good fixtures. So maybe for the next few weeks, while things are a little unsettled, we want to be saving our transfers, building that mini wildcard, so we can mini wildcard in game week 23, 24, and then wildcard again a bit later without having to rip out the wildcard to get Haaland back in straight away. Because if we can get a Haaland and a Wissa and an Mbumo, or a collection of players like that with good fixtures, why not? Like Palace still have good fixtures for like quite a few game weeks at the moment, so maybe having a plan of who you're having now and who you're going to. The little caveat for me is the game week 29 possible blank. We obviously know that it's going to be, Spurs, Arsenal, Liverpool, Newcastle. Like 2 of those will blank, and their 2 opponents will blank for the League Cup. Interestingly, neither of those ties went the way we thought they were going to go, with Spurs coming out 1-0 winners at home to Liverpool and Newcastle winning at the Emirates at Arsenal 2-0. So some interesting ties there when they come back around. And remember, we've also got FA Cup this week as well. So that's what's going on at the moment. I think we've not had many specific ties come out yet. I think Aston Villa came behind win against West Ham this morning 2-1. But, really things that we're looking forward for this week coming, I don't think they've played out yet.
So when do we find out when that blank, like what that blank's going to look like? And when do we find out the double game week? Because I'm hearing a few mixed messages. That Liverpool-Everton double game week, is it meant to be game week 24 that's going to be happening?
23-24, I think, is what I've roughly heard. But again, there's nothing confirmed, as you say.
So when do we find these out? Like, when are we going to find out, hey, here's what the 23-24 double game week, if it happens, will look like, and here's what the 29 blank would look like, just so we can plan ahead?
Yeah, so the blank we will find out on the 7th of February that's the second leg of the semi-final. So that's when we know which teams will play in the game week 29 blank. Whether Liverpool will play again in game week 23-24 is harder to tell, because that's a entirely fixture and planning kind of thing. I think Ben Crellin has said, 23-24 is the most likely, considering the other games that Liverpool could have to play. So if you say that, if Liverpool, like we talked about the other week, if Liverpool can make it to the semi-finals of the FA Cup, if they can make it to the finals of the League Cup, there's 2 more blank game weeks in there. So then that diminishes the amount of game weeks that you can put a game week in further in advance. So it would make sense for the Premier League to put them in while they can. The issue is that, between game week 22 and 23, Liverpool go back into the Champions League and they play Lille. And then between 23 and 24, they play PSV and PSV. So it does become tricky when you have all these extra fixtures. And then if you... so we know that Liverpool have progressed to the second round of the Champions League. So, they could put out weaker teams against things too, because they don't need to win them. They'd like to win them, obviously. But we have to take into account that Liverpool are going to have Champions League fixtures on Tuesdays and Wednesdays as well. So that, again, reduces the amount of game weeks that game week fixture can go. It is the derby, so it means there's not a lot of transport to coordinate, and it will just still be... you just have to organise police and things like that, which would all be done, Merseyside-wise. But that still has to be organised from Premier League to the Met. So you'd like to know a few weeks out, and generally we would know a few weeks out. But a few weeks out is kind of is coming up. Like 21, we're in game week 21 going into now, so you'd think we would know in the next week or two if that's going to happen.
And if they're going to have that many games between all the competitions, rotation is going to be a bitch, which means, would you even triple up on Liverpool, right? I'm thinking Salah and TAA, and that's it. Or maybe you double up on Liverpool defence because they're less likely to be rotated.
And it just depends, I think. We're still talking that Gomez is injured. Kanate is kind of coming back into the fold, but there's still injuries there. So, we kind of would know. I would expect the rotation to be in the Champions League for now, as they've already progressed. That is less important, and the title race is probably the main important thing at the moment. Like, why would you play your strongest team in a competition you've already progressed through? Doesn't make a lot of sense. If Slot was Arteta, he'd probably be playing Saka every game. But there's a good chance for some rest now because they've done so well previously. You will get rotation, and that is tricky because at the moment you're kind of looking, Gakpo, Diaz, Salah is the potent 3. You bring Jota into it, and he's not really found fire again since coming back from injury. You put Darwin in there, and he hasn't done really anything this year in any shape or form. So without that front 3, so I'd be pretty set, I think, if we see some rotation in the first week of the Champions League. And Gakpo's been starting consistently. I would probably gamble on having a Gakpo or a Diaz as well, because I think they would be the go-to front three.
Interesting. Okay. Well, with that in mind, what are your thoughts of this week upcoming then? How are you playing it?
Well, I've made a transfer already, which is
Oh, okay. Talk to me.
which is new. I straight after the game week was a bit done with my Jota experiment, so I have. Let me stop sharing this page. I have shipped him already. So at the moment, my team looks a little bit like this. So I have moved Jota to Mbumo because Jota was being sold and I was a bit wary of a drop, but he wasn't ready to drop, but Mbumo was rising. So I know I'm going to want him in a few weeks. He's got some hard fixtures up until then, but I kind of had a look at the way I would set up, and I don't have to play that spot, and I can still play quite a strong team until then. So I kind of have a little rough idea of what I'm going to do going forward. So game week 21, I think I'm looking at 3 transfers for a -4. Jota to Mbumo that was already done. I'm looking at a Kirkes to Munoz from Crystal Palace. And I'm looking at Jesus to Mateta for this game week. And then after the Southampton game, next game week, I'll probably do Fernandes to Gordon, as long as nothing happens in the meantime. And then after the double, if the double happens for Liverpool, 24-25, I think Wolves fixtures turn again. So I'll probably look at doing Gakpo to Cunha around 26-27 if nothing else comes up.
Interesting. So what are you going to do with Mbumo during his difficult fixtures? Are you just going to bench him, or will he be a player you just always play?
Yeah, so let me have a look. I got a different, where I was planning my team earlier. So this week, obviously I'm not planning on playing him at City. I could change my mind, but at the moment I'm still pretty set on the way I'm set up. I just think it's a little bit easier, and I'm at the moment I'm 50-50 on risking a Fernandes captain at Southampton as well. So we'll see.
Is that because of the result with Liverpool that's sort of given you a bit more confidence in United?
No, it's just they're playing Southampton. Southampton have been pretty crap, so I'd expect him to be involved, and I'd expect them to win. So Liverpool against Forest. Forest beat them last time out. So that's a difficult one. The Arsenal Tottenham one, Tottenham can score. That's what they seem to do. So, that could be tricky. Isak at Wolves is probably the other one I would look at. But, Wolves can turn up on their day. So Fernandes is probably it's Isak or Fernandes, but I'm not too sure which way.
Yeah, look, this week's difficult because ordinarily I'd be backing Liverpool. It's just Forest beat them last time.
And Forest are good.
Yeah,
it's a good game. It's not easy. And Liverpool are coming off a loss and a draw in their last 2. So, now is the time to play them again. So, I would not be surprised if Forest managed to get that one over and do a double this year. But who knows? So to go with your Mbumo question, I've got loosely, I've got him playing against Liverpool next week. But I might play Robinson at Leicester instead. And then game week 23, he plays Palace, which is fine. And then it's Tottenham, West Ham, Leicester. So, after the next 2, he's actually fine. And I'm hoping again, with my Mbumo go, that I've managed to pick him up before everyone else again, and I can kind of make a bit of progress with that. So, yeah, benched for this one. Maybe benched next week. I don't know. And then we'll see from there.
Okay. Yeah, you made the early transfer this time round. Normally it's me.
Yeah.
All right, I'll share mine.
Let me close the window.
It's all good. I was going to say someone else wants to join in on the fantasy football chat.
Yeah, we have house guests, so we've.
Ah, all good. So, in well, not in my normal fashion, I haven't made any transfers. Mainly because I don't know what transfers to make. And the price rises, nothing has been making me go like, oh, I want to catch that rise, right?
Yeah.
In Boomer, I know I want, not yet. For me, it's I want to wait till these games pass. Mainly because I've got the money in the bank. But if I want to get Haaland up front, I may be a bit short. So it depends. I think it could just be me being a bit greedy, me wanting Wood and Isaac and Haaland, as well as like my midline being the way it is. But I've got Sells in goal. Do I put Stolichik in? Maybe. Leicester haven't been great either. I mean, how many clean sheets have Leicester kept? None all season. So I'm not really backing Leicester for their clean sheets. So I've got Sells in goal against Liverpool. Forest, their last outing with Liverpool, kept a clean sheet. So if they can repeat that again, that'll pay off. I've got Colwell. What's that?
Even if you pick up some save points from him, if he makes 5-6 saves, you're going to get a few points.
Mate, if he can save a penalty, that'd be great. I got Colwell against Bournemouth. I'm thinking about using Timber instead. Colwell just hasn't been great, right? He hasn't been great. He's gotten me one clean sheet against Everton, and other than that, he just has not been great. Chelsea look like there's just something wrong all the time. Like there's just something off. The team's never solid defense, solid attack. It's just there's something a bit off. Robinson against West Ham United and TAA against Forest. With a player like TAA, you just can't bench him for that price. You just would never bench him. Like you're not buying a 7 million defender just to bench him.
No.
Then midfield, I've got Ahmad, Palmer, Corden, Salah, and Rodgers. Currently, vice captain is on Salah, and then up front, I got Jesus and Isaac. Do I play Wood? I don't know. Honestly, I'm actually quite stumped. I don't know. If I brought in Wood, it'll probably be for Rodgers. The game between Arsenal versus Tottenham, I can see goals happening. Rodgers is against Everton. Everton can be defensively tight if they wanted to be, and they're away. Rodgers, Rodgers, look at his scores against Brighton and Man City. They're solid scores as well. So, this isn't my bust team either. Wood's either going to come in for Rodgers and Timber's going to come in for Colwell if I did make those changes. Hoyst and I will bench, though. And I've got 5.3 mil in the bank. So, I've got the cash there to go TAA out to some cheap defender and Jesus to Haaland. I just don't know what to do. So, I might just roll this week.
Yeah, nice. As we said, if you're thinking about Haaland and that kind of stuff, like rolling's not a bad idea to collect a couple of free transfers and do something with him.
Yeah, do you know what it is? It's me wanting Haaland and Mbumo, and I don't have the money for that. I don't have the money for that if I just upgrade TAA, downgrade TAA. There's someone else needs to go, and I don't really want to make that other sacrifice.
And if you do that as well, you're kind of ruling yourself out of Saka when he's back as well.
That's right. That's right. There is a way. I remember playing around with this at the time where I could have Haaland up front and the threemium in the middle. But what that does is my other two forwards are pretty cheap. I think one was Cunha, which I do want when he's back because of his price point, and João Pedro. But João Pedro is now out. I think he got injured.
Yeah, in training.
Yeah, so, it's interesting. And don't forget, we're still now in transfer window, right? I know this transfer window isn't as explosive as the ones when the season's over, but being in a transfer window now, you want to give room for people to bring players in because in the past we have seen good players come in. I remember Newcastle, there was one season that had Demba Ba, and in the mid-year transfer window, they brought in, was it Sissoko? I can't remember who it was exactly. I think it was Sissoko, and he crushed it. Like, the forward to have in that year was Demba Ba and Sissoko. I remember, and that was like the thing to do.
Yeah.
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 So yeah.
Definitely something to keep an eye on is the transfer windows, and to know who's coming in, who's being priced at what, and who will get in the team straight away and who will take a little bit longer to get in the teams. The other thing to remember is that we've got, from a couple of weeks' time, we've got the assistant manager chip that we can start to think about, which you need budget for that too. So, in your circumstances, or there's an option that you can play early so that funds are used and gone, and then they come back again for you to then get Haaland, and it makes it less of a tricky spot. Interestingly, the game weeks that I was talking about using it from the plan 31 to 30, 31 to 33, I think you've got in there, if we say we're aiming for a team, I think you've got Spurs, Bournemouth, and someone else playing Southampton. So, maybe that's Bob 3, and they're 3 decent fixtures, like top half teams against Southampton. If you get a few points, if you get a few 5-0 wins, you're laughing. But just things to consider.
One thing to also consider though is the assistant manager chip. If you beat a team 5 places above you, that could be worth up to 16 points.
So that's good.
Now
you get a team like Palace who start to make a bit of progress because they've got a lot of teams above them. But you are also risking losing your goal points if you are expecting Everton to beat City. You might get it, but are you more likely to have a Brentford thrashing Southampton?
Yeah, that's true. So it's almost like a high risk, high reward play, which I guess which is why they've pointed it that way. But I heard I think it was Let's Talk, Andy from Let's Talk FPL, he mentioned this. You wouldn't often bet against a lower league team beating the likes of a Liverpool. You wouldn't really do it so often against Arsenal or even Man City. Like, if they find their stride again, unlikely. I tell you what, if Man City doesn't catch their stride, I'll be putting my assistant managership on every single low team that plays Man City, because if they don't catch their stride, that's a good bet. But, let's assume this is a Man City of old. Unlikely. But Forest, they have been good, but they're overperforming their stats.
Yeah.
Right? So would you then target the lower teams that play Forest? Because Forest seem to step up against big teams, but, they're outperforming their stats, which means it should normalize.
See, I think it is a good strategy. My strategy would probably be a little bit more subjective around the time. I think if I was going to go for that strategy, I'd look for a team, say Newcastle. If they currently don't have Wilson because he's injured, if they were to lose Isak as well and lose their forward potential, I would then pick the teams playing Newcastle because I think they have a bigger chance of winning. The other ones that I'd pick a team like Brentford, Bournemouth, who are 8th, 6th to 10th, and then pick a team that's 15th, because then I think you've got a better chance of them winning. Like if you can pick a Palace at 16th, playing Brentford at 9th at Palace, it's less of a risk and you've got more chance of getting some returns there. Because like you said, we've got a few of these teams who are outperforming their stats and they are a bit higher. Forest, I'm quite not there with them because I think they're doing quite well, and I think they are consistently doing well, and it's hard to pick those ones. I think when we've said, Brighton, Brentford, Bournemouth, all the bees, that they seem to be the ones that slip up randomly, and I think those would be the ones that I target as opposed to Forest. And I think that just goes to show with Wood's high in the rankings, Aina's high in the rankings, Sell's the best keeper. Like, that doesn't happen for a reason, and yes, they are outperforming. And if that starts to turn and we start to see a few teams getting in behind and putting some goals in and beating them, definitely a good strategy. The way they're performing at the moment, probably too much of a risk for me, and I think there's a different avenue to go. But yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on when we get closer to playing that chip.
Yeah, fair. You know what? I like that. I didn't even consider going almost out of the top 4-5 because Brentford, you're right. Sure, they are above the midline, but they can be beaten. They just score all the goals.
And we talk about teams not playing for their manager. And we've seen a few managers be turned over. Like we've just seen David Moyes' return to Everton, his new manager back at Everton from today. Graham Potter is at West Ham, I think. So, they could turn those teams around. And those teams are all down the bottom. So West Ham especially were a good team not that long ago. And if they can turn that around and they can start putting some wins together, you pick the right lot of fixtures and you can make up a lot of points with West Ham.
On that, David Moyes, I didn't know this, that he was back at Everton. So does that mean Everton defence becomes all of a sudden much better?
No, because it's still the same players. So you still need to give him time. But when we get to the chip, maybe we're looking at those options. Everton's defence has not been the problem. It's Everton's attack that has been the problem. And they have brought Moyes in soon enough to fix that problem. And we know that they've got Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who's, fine, but he doesn't really do well in his stats. Then they got Beto, and then they've got another striker who's injured now. So, a striker and some attacking midfielders is probably on the shopping list for Everton for this period. Mm-hmm. But them defensively is not the problem. It's them being too defensive because that's all they have that is the problem. Mm. And then they lose a goal and then they're out because they're not going to score and then they lose by 5.
Yeah, fair. Speaking of assistant manager chip, have you seen the prices?
Yeah, I've had a bit of a look. Nothing.
I'll bring it up.
Yeah, go for it. Save me.
This surprised me. I was surprised to see things which weren't priced in 0.5 increments. Like the 0.8 and the 0.1 seemed really weird. From 0.5 to 0.8 is a 3 mil difference, a 0.3 difference. 0.8 to 0.1 is a 0.3 difference. 0.1 to 0.5 is a 0.4 difference. It's just so weird.
Yeah. Interesting that, United is at 0.8 and isn't at 1.1. I think that's interesting for me.
Yeah, that's quite cheap, to be honest.
Even like Graham Potter at 0.5, that's an interesting one. That's cheap as
West Ham. Yeah, well, you were saying if West Ham can turn things around.
And I think these are set, aren't they? Like these aren't going to change. These are set prices. So if West Ham go on a runner and start putting some great results together, even looking at Wolves there, they did all right for a little bit. Brentford, they're not too expensive either. Like these are some teams that we can make some strides on. But definitely, Southampton, Leicester, Ipswich. I think we know what we're getting now. West Ham could be great. That could be the game breaker right there with Potter. Villa, if they can get some momentum going, could be good. And then I don't really understand why Brighton is so much more expensive than Brentford and like Bournemouth.
That is strange. Yeah. And the likes of Villa being 0.8, whereas even Iraola from Bournemouth is 1.1. I don't know. Do you think they priced these reflecting the leaderboard as of now rather than, I guess, what the odds are for a team to be at a certain rank over the overall season? Because it looks like that's what it looks like. That's how they played it.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably to do with overall rank at the moment mixed with like goals scored. Because if you look at like Spurs is mid-table-ish, and then you've got probably like Villa are a bit lower than they are in the league, I think. But they don't score much either, so you're going to get less returns. But then you've got a team
what about Brentford though?
Yeah, but again, when their home form is very different to their away form, so you're not going to get 3 home games in there for Brentford. And the way they've priced it does make it a bit difficult to jump between if you don't have a lot of budget. Yeah, I think the one that I would look at Arteta and Slot for Liverpool and Arsenal, but the one I probably won't look at is Maresca at Chelsea. I think they're just too all over the place for him to be a 1.5 mil.
They're inconsistent. I don't trust it. And this surprised me too, because for the first quarter of the season, Newcastle weren't all that great.
Yeah.
That surprised me. I mean, Newcastle have been firing now, but I don't know if I almost want to see more from Newcastle before I'm willing to, assistant manager them.
And I think probably they've thought that people might jump in and play this chip reasonably quickly. And then it's kind of reflective of now as well. Like Newcastle are doing well, they're scoring lots of goals. City are City, so they're always going to be priced high. United are in a bit of a sticky place. They're a bit, halfway down. Spurs are struggling. They got lots of injuries. They're halfway down. It kind of looks that way to me. But be interesting to know if they ever announce how they priced. Because I'd be curious to know why they ranked some of those people that we find similar at different prices.
I mean, okay, humor me here, right? Let's just say you play this chip.
Yeah.
Today. Straight away, you could probably go for a safe United versus Southampton. Spend your 0.8 on Ruben Amorim. Walk away with your 6 points, maybe a clean sheet.
Yeah.
Next week, you've got United versus Brighton. You could keep him, or you immediately go to the Forest. So I don't know. I feel like with this chip, you could almost play it whenever and just it's. Do you know what it feels like? It almost feels like, pick like what's that term? Match picking or picking a team on who's going to win with a bit of extra. I guess extra. How would you say extra pizzazz about it? Like you get extra points for clean sheets and extra goals, but you're almost just footy tipping, right? You're picking your team that you think will win.
Yeah, and if you could do it well, like if you could play it this week, my strategy would be bouncing managers, and it would be making sure I have 1.5 million to go because I would go Man United at home Southampton this week, and then next week is Forest at home to Southampton.
Yeah.
And the week after is Newcastle away at Southampton.
Yeah, just target Southampton.
Just target Southampton because they're not doing well and they're playing three teams. United have come off a decent draw against Liverpool. You'd expect Forest to win at home. You'd expect Newcastle to win and healthily. So, that's probably how I will look at it. So if we go, what did I say? I think I said 31 was when I was looking at playing it. So,
oh, sorry, I just realised I wasn't showing my tab there. That's where. So 31 you were looking at.
Yeah, so you could have Tottenham at home to Southampton. Then you could have Aston Villa away at Southampton, and then West Ham at home. So it's not phenomenal, but then you could go Wolves, who've got Ipswich away, Tottenham at home, United. Newcastle have Leicester United, Villa. Arsenal have Everton, Brentford, Ipswich.
What about West Ham, Bournemouth? Would that be one you'd be willing to bet? Are they 5 points, 5 spaces apart?
Yeah, they are at the moment, but maybe not when we get there. West Ham would be one you could risk just keeping it. Bournemouth, Liverpool, Southampton. You could risk.
Wolves versus Spurs. If Cunha is back, you could absolutely swing for the fences there.
You could, but you are then also risking. Like Spurs weren't bad at the start of the season, and they're going to get injuries back. So things are going to change a little bit for Spurs. Yeah, I think there's not a clear set of fixtures that one team has that I'm like, yep, they're good. Maybe Wolves, I'm top of the ticker for that. Ipswich, Tottenham, United, but maybe a bit template as well. Maybe that's where everyone will go. You could take a bit of a risk with someone like Palace if they gain a bit of form. Who've got Brighton, City, Bournemouth. The red fixture in the middle makes them down on the ticker, but yeah, not ready. Don't have enough information, but.
And also, don't forget, the first time you use the assistant manager chip, it does not cost a transfer, but every subsequent move after that costs a transfer.
Yeah. So again, that's where you go, do I just go with a West Ham and just take the Liverpool game and hope they get something out of it? Or do I go from there? Last couple of weeks ago, we were talking about benched points and how we think that we benched some points, especially myself, and I said at the end of the season I was going to have a look back and kind of figure out how many points I benched. I couldn't wait. I did it early. So with 20 weeks done, I've calculated how many points I have had on the bench. Points alone on the bench over 3 points. So 3 points I didn't count, 2 points didn't count, 1 point didn't count. except for goalkeepers. Anything above 2 points that was more than my goalkeeper thing, I counted. I had 151 points on the bench. So then I went further and I decided to look at each game week and replace a player on my bench with the least scoring player in my team to see how much better I would be doing. So, for example, if Bruno Fernandes -2 week, I swapped him with a 2 player. So if there was a better player on the bench, I swapped them in, goalkeepers included. I would be 123 points better off, and I'd be sitting in the top 50,000.
Oh, ooh, okay. There
So
we go.
So from game week 1 up to game week 20. So game week 1, 4 points on the bench. So 13 of 20 weeks, I had more than 4 points on the bench. Game week 1, 4. Game week 3, 12. 6 was 7 points. Game week 7 was 8. Game week 8 was 6. Game week 9 was 6. Game week 10 was 25.
I remember that one.
12 was 18. 16 was 19. 17 was 13. 18 was 14. 19 was 12. And 20 was 7.
It's a lot of bench points.
We're picking good players. We're just not playing the bloody players at the right time.
But wait. Just let's just hold up, because hindsight is always a wonderful thing, right? When you looked at this and you looked at your rationale, like Bruno Fernandes neg 2 twice this season, was he the right player to pick though?
So going from it's very much a story of two halves. So game weeks 1 to 10 were the first 5 or 6 was me going, no, these players are going to come through, they're going to come through, and not playing the right players. Playing Fernandes when they weren't performing, and it didn't go well. And the people on the bench, in hindsight, probably should have been on the pitch to start with. From game weeks kind of 11 to 20, it was a bit more, like a Kirkes got 12 points, or I played a Gabriel and they let a goal in, and I had a Hall who had 12 points. For me, rationally, probably the second half, they were the decisions I was always going to make are the ones that I made. The first half are ones I probably could have learnt my lesson a bit sooner.
And you had more points in the second half. You probably got 60-70% of the points in the second half than you did in the first half.
And the first half as well, I was getting game week scores of 40 or 50 and having 10 points on the bench. The second half is game week scores of 60 or 70 and having 10 on the bench. So it's just lucky weeks of all players returning it. If you could go back and play a bench boost, I would.
Yeah, but here's the thing though, I don't think any of those game weeks, because I remember even your 20-point game week 10, right? None of those game weeks made us feel that would have that had bench boost written all over it, and we just didn't bench boost. Like you said, those were the game weeks where someone scored a lucky goal, a defender scored a goal and got a clean sheet, and there's 15 points right there. Do you know what I mean? And that's just really hard to predict. So I don't think, I wouldn't kick myself too hard about that, because when you have a chance to play, let's say, a Liverpool defender or an Arsenal defender versus a Bournemouth defender, and they're playing both relatively mid-table teams, you're going to pick the Arsenal one, because even if you went onto a betting site and put money on, the odds favour the Arsenal clean sheet.
Yeah.
Now, they can let one through, and the Bournemouth one, Kirkes could score. You just can't. It's going to be really hard to, try and forecast those. So yeah, look, yes, does it suck? Yes, but don't beat yourself up too much about it, because I reckon you made the right decisions.
And that's what I say. I just looked at the game week 10. So the team that I played was Sells in net, Alexander-Arnold, Aït-Nouri, Gavardio, Mbeumo, Johnson, Palmer, Rodgers, Cunha, Haaland, Wood. So Johnson, Rodgers, 8 and 9, Cunha with 6, Haaland 4, Wood 7, Gavardio 7, Sells 6. Game score 56. On the bench, Fabianski 2, Gabriel 2, Aina with 15 against West Ham, and Semenyo with a goal and an assist at City. That's 10 points. So, we weren't really sold on City were being as bad as they were at that point, so I don't think he was ever going to play over Mbeumo, Johnson, Palmer, Rodgers. Aina over a Trent Aït-Nouri and Gvardiol, probably not either. So yeah, look, in hindsight, that game weeks now, Aina plays over Aït-Nouri definitely, but then no, like it was very much a thing. So it's like I say, it's all hindsight and it's part of the game, isn't it? So it's good to know that you do have your decisions that you're making are right, your transfers that you're making are correct. It's just sometimes it's the look and it's just the way things fall, and that those few game weeks they didn't fall right. Then I've had game weeks where I've got 99, 105 points. So you're gonna be on the wrong end of them sometimes. You're gonna be on the right end of them sometimes. You can't judge your whole game week on what if I'd have made all the right choices. What if I'd have captained the right person? What if I'd have triple captain Haaland in game week 2? Like that just ruins the fun.
Captain this week. It's doing my head in though. Who to captain?
And that's why I said last week about taking calculated risks. For me this week, because the captaincy is hard, Fernandes is a reasonable risk. Like he's got a good chance of returning. He's got the best, bookies' chance of returning against people. Haaland's going to be back in the mix. People are going to be thinking about Haaland after his couple of goals. Salah's going to be there. Palmer's still there. Isak's there. There's enough options now to go with the differential, and with Bruno less owned than the others, he's worth a gamble. It's the right time to do that. It's not the right time when you've got a clear pick, and when there's not a clear pick, why not?
Hopefully we don't get another Bruno neg 2.
If Bruno gets another neg 2, I'm never ever going to pick him again. Never again.
I can't believe, oh mate, you've had him for both his neg 2s this season.
Yeah, if Bruno gets another neg 2, I don't think I'm ever going to pick another Bruno ever again. It goes past him to all of his kin.
Oh gosh. All right. Well, that wraps this episode up, I reckon. When's the game? When's the cutoff again? Just so I don't miss it.
So the cutoff is. Let's have a look. Make sure we get it right. It's Wednesday at 4 a.m. Australian time. So obviously it's Wednesday, Tuesday evening for anyone listening over the pond. Interesting games to come. Though we've obviously got Liverpool in action in a couple hours' time from recording at home to Accrington Stanley. We've got obviously the big Arsenal Man United game in the League Cup that's going to be on Monday. Bournemouth are playing West Brom, Chelsea playing Morecambe, so you expect a second team out there. Forest at Luton, Brentford at Plymouth. So not a lot of big clashes, but we do have the Arsenal Man United on Monday morning, which will be interesting and could shape maybe what we choose to do. If Jesus plays in that game, starts in that game against United, I think he's definitely going to be out of my team because I don't think he's going to play again from the start. So that would be a good risk, and it will give me other insight into. I'm trying to hold Gakpo for the double, but if he starts, tonight, against Accrington Stanley, then maybe I'm looking another way because he's not. Is he going to play twice in a week?
But the thing with Jesus is, what other options do Arsenal have? That they don't have that many options. I know Havertz can play up front, right? But the thing is, Saka's out, and Arteta's been playing around with combinations of Trossard, Martinelli, Havertz, Jesus. I think he needs them all there.
Yeah, I'm not confident about the minutes, and I don't want to go in. I've already got Gakpo, who's a bit of a minutes risk.
True.
Arsenal are playing Spurs, so does that suit a Havertz style of play? I don't know. I don't really know what the style of play is, but I've got Mbeumo, who I don't really want to come on at home to City, even though he could do quite well. Gakpo is a bit of a minutes risk. Jesus, like I said, is a bit of a minutes risk. And, other on the bench, Kirkes away at Chelsea and Timber at home to Tottenham. There's not really anyone I would love to come in. So if he plays this coming game in the League Cup, I would think it would be unlikely that he would start again. But he might play Havertz, Trossard, Jesus, and then, one of them has to start again. They can't just play no one. So,
yeah.
interesting, but
Because
go on.
also though, so with Saka out, Ethan Nwaneri is also out, who was the best Saka replacement as well. He got
Yeah,
injured in the last game, so I don't think he's got that much depth there to not play Jesus. That's my take on it. But that being said, I don't be surprised. I reserve the right where we're gonna do we're gonna have the Wednesday game and then the weekend games again, right? So this is gonna be another, I guess, double game week in the sense that 2 game weeks in 1 week. Um, I reserve the right that next time we chat, I've actually done TAA to I don't know, to some cheap defender and Jesus to Erling Haaland.
yeah, yeah. Well, you're one for saying something and then going another way. So it'd be
Yeah.
interesting to see. So obviously we've got we've still got FA Cup games coming up. We got a midweek lot of games. We're going to try and be back in your ears next week. We're hoping to record Friday evening here, so hopefully it'll be maybe in your ears in time for the game week. But if not, good luck for the 2 game weeks. Hopefully just the one. We'll hopefully talk to you next week. Andy, good luck. Not too much luck. I still want to beat you, but let's have green arrows all around.
Good luck, everyone. Peace.
Thanks, man. Bye.